Marketers today have the capacity to reach people on many different levels. There are literally dozens of ways that you can communicate with your constituents electronically, ranging from email, short text messaging, instant messaging, blogging, podcasting, social networks, online video, discussion, any manner of electronic communications. And I think the key thing is don't try to boil the ocean, because your head will explode if you try to learn how to use this stuff and apply all of this stuff. For most marketers, you don't need to, because the audience is already self-selecting the tools and the channels that they want to use to communicate. If you're trying to reach teenagers, for example, video is a very effective way to talk to that group, as is instant messaging. If you're trying to reach an older group, the over 45 group, you'll find that email still works pretty well, but blogs are quite successful there. You'll find that busy executives who are traveling a lot kind of like podcasts, because it's an efficient way to use their time. So you should start with the strategy. Don't start with the tool. And this is maybe the most frequent mistake I see marketers making, is they come and say, we want to use Twitter, what do we do with it? Well, that's not the question. Using Twitter is just it's like coming in and saying, I have a hammer, I want to hit something with it. That's not the point. The point is that you want to build something, and the hammer is one of many tools that you can use to build it. So start with the strategy and not the tool. Look at the audience that you're trying to reach and how you're trying to interact with them, and choose your tool based on that. For example, if you're trying to communicate a message without the expectation of a great deal of response, then maybe a blog or a podcast or a video is an effective way to do that. If you want a highly interactive medium where you're asking them questions, soliciting replies, trying to gain feedback, creating maybe iterative product development interactively, then a social network or a Twitter feed or some sort of a private version of Twitter may be a very effective way to do that. Even if you're using social networks, there are many variations of social networks. So you have private branded networks, you have public branded networks, you have networks that have no brand at all, but at which your marketers are listening and are occasionally interacting with members of the community. They're essentially grassroots networks that spring up. So even when in the realm of a social network, you shouldn't be looking at there's only one way to do that. Social networks themselves have many different uses. They can be used for product support, for customer peer support, for getting advice on how to develop new products, for interactive product development. They can be used for brand awareness, for brand ambassadorships, street-level marketing. They can be used for association membership. There are any number of different approaches to using just that one tool, the social network. So when you take all of the tools that are available now, perhaps a dozen new kinds of tools that have emerged over the last 5 years, and you multiply that times the number of ways that each tool can be used, you literally are looking at scores of different applications of these new technologies. So don't try to learn them all. Start with what your customers are doing. Look for the communities where they're already congregating. Engage in discussion with them, find out how they want to interact with you, and then build your tool strategy around that. The key is to start by listening, and there are lots of great tools to do that. Then move into a managed dialogue, not a sales pitch, never a sales pitch, but a question and answer process where you're trying to fine-tune their needs. And only then should you be moving into developing a product, developing a community, or actually delivering information to them in some way through whatever channels they've told you make sense for them.